Coleman Hughes just came out with a video. This was from when he was on a panel with Harvard, and they were talking about colorblindness. And I wanted to show you a clip in which he brings up the fact that Stephen Colbert had made fun of Bernie Sanders for Bernie Sanders basically making a colorblind statement that people should vote on presidential candidates based on their abilities, based on their knowledge, based on their platform. And I wanted to just show you, and we'll play the clip by Coleman explaining the scenario, and then we'll play the clip by Stephen Colbert so that you can see the two side by side.
Who, when he announced his presidential bid in 2019, went on the radio and had the audacity to suggest that voters should choose candidates, and I quote, not by the color of their skin, but by their abilities and what they stand for. This was in response to the criticism that he is a white male. So this was a classic expression of the colorblind principle, and to my ears, an expression of basic sanity. And years ago would have been lauded as a progressive statement. But instead of being praised for it, he was mocked most significantly by Stephen Colbert on America's most popular late night TV show, who sarcastically quipped, "Yes, like Dr. King, I have a dream where this diverse nation can come together and be led by an old white guy," to laughs and applause by the audience. Now, had Colbert read what Martin Luther King actually had to say on the subject.
Back to Coleman in a second, but just for reference, I'm going to go ahead and play the clip where Colbert actually says this.
But Sanders, for all that diversity, Bernie Sanders does not believe that hurts his chances.
We have got to look at candidates not by the color of their skin, not by their sexual orientation or their gender, and not by their age. A non-discriminatory society which looks at people based on their abilities, based on what they stand for.
Yes, like Dr. King, I have a dream where this diverse nation can come together and be led by an old white guy. Where do I find the courage? Also, where do I find the pudding? I want pudding.
You can hear the audience laughing as if that was such a good dig at Bernie Sanders, and as if that makes so much sense. Let's go ahead and watch now the rest of what Coleman was saying.
He probably would have held his tongue. This is what Dr. King wrote in his final book, Where Do We Go From Here? The basic thing in determining the best candidate is not his color, but his integrity. Almost word for word what Bernie Sanders said. It's a curious feature of our national discourse that the resonance of Dr. King's message now depends entirely upon the identity of the messenger. In one study that has not yet been published, the behavioral scientist from Brown, Michael Bernstein, asked people to rate a quote squarely in the colorblind tradition on a racism scale from 1 to 5. And here's the quote. "Black supremacy is as dangerous as white supremacy, and God is not interested merely in the freedom of black men and brown men and yellow men. God is interested in the freedom of the whole human race." So one group in this study was told that the quote was by Dr. King, which is true, and the second group was told it was by Donald Trump. In the first group, roughly 2% of people said the quote was racist. In the second group, some 50% of people said the quote was racist. So when it comes to colorblindness, we are...
Okay, so based on that quote that he just shared, it's indicating, and he explains this, that basically people care more about the messenger than the actual message. If someone is black, they can basically say things that a white person could never say without being accused of being racist. And so it's just highlighting that idea, like content doesn't matter as much as the messenger. He explains, Coleman explains that Bernie and Martin Luther King, they actually had very similar views on most issues. People talk about Martin Luther King being a radical, when really he wasn't a radical on race. He was a radical, or considered radical at that time more because of his anti-war stance with Vietnam. and because of his beliefs on economic policy. Coleman explains later in this as well that you have all these people saying, oh, those who claim that Martin Luther King promoted colorblindness, they're taking his writings out of context. And Coleman explains and claims, I've read hundreds of pages of Martin Luther King's writings. Every 3 to 4 pages contain something that if someone said today, they can be canceled for. So I bring this up with Coleman partly because there's an emphasis with some of the anti-racist ideology. You have to lift up the voice of the oppressed. You have to lift up the voices of those that are from these minority groups. But then, they're not wanting to lift up Coleman's voice. They're wanting to lift up Ibram Kendi's voice. They'll lift up Robin DiAngelo's voice, even though she's not black, because they like her message. You see just a double standard emerge in which they're right, critical race theorists are right. If you challenge them, if you're white and you're challenging them, you are just trying to protect your own privilege. If you're black and you're challenging those ideas, you have internalized oppression. So no matter which way you slice it, the critical race theorists are right. A lot of them, their theory stems from postmodernism, in which they don't believe in objective truth, but yet what they're saying is true. Subjective experience is true, not objective experience and stats and reason and historical context. It's subjective experience that really matters and that trumps overall. I'll have more videos coming out on history, politics, society, race. Go ahead and subscribe to my channel. Thanks.